The function f is drawn on the accompanying set of axes. Evaluate f of 1. Okay, so we're trying to see f of x. We want f of 1. Okay, so what we're looking at really is where x is 1, which we know happens here on the x-axis. We go to where the function is, and it's this point here that we're looking at. Now the coordinates at this point, the x is 1, but the y is 3. So f of 1, if you go to where x is 1, it must give you a y value of 3. Okay, and that's what we would explain on these lines, that we went to where x is 1 to find the matching y value. Now, it tells us f of -1 is -2. It wants to know which one of those represents the domain and which one of those represents the range. Now, we're always going to need to know domain is the x, the input, and the range is the y, the output. So if you look at this graph, if we go to where x is -1, then sure enough, the y there will be -2, giving us the point with coordinates -1, -2, right? So just as we know with ordered pairs, the first place is always the x, the second place is always the y. So same idea with functions, we know that the number in the parentheses will always be the input, the x, the domain, and the number that you're given is your, or that comes out is your output, or your y, or the value in your range. Okay, so next, f of x equals 4. Let's go back up to the graph. So again, f of x equals 4. This time, we don't know the input. We do know that the output, the y value, is 4. Okay, we can also see that really the only point left on the graph is this one right here. Let's just get a different color. Okay, so the coordinates of this point are x is 3 and y is 4. When we have coordinates 3, 4, again, it means 3 is the x, the input, 4 is the y, the output. We knew the output, we just didn't know the input, that x is 3. So in this case, when we're asked how did we find it, we looked for a y value at 4, and we found the matching x value at 3. Okay? The last thing we're asked for is domain and range of this function, written as an inequality, and an interval notation. So I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller and erase whatever I had up here so that, we can see the graph a little bit better, and we'll put together domain and range. Now, the domain, again, you can't forget this, is always the x's, and the range is always the y's. So we know that the domain, the x's, depends on the x-axis. So literally all you're looking for is what x values are included. To do this, for domain, we always look left and right. The furthest point to the left is this one here, right, at -1. And the furthest point right that we go on the x-axis is this point here, +3. So our domain goes from -1 to 3 inclusive. We could write that as an inequality, -1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3. Or in interval notation with a square bracket, we're going from -1 until 3. Okay. On the other hand, the range is always your y values. In this case, we're only looking at this axis. We want to see how far down we went and how far up we went. The lowest point on this graph is here at -2. The highest point on the y-axis is up here at 4. So our range is when y goes from -2 to 4. And we use these less than or equal to signs to show from -2 through 4. In interval notation, we're saying that we start at -2 and end at 4, with the square brackets to include both -2 and 4.